President John F. Kennedy declared when he was speaking to Congress and the nation, "I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important in the long-range exploration of space." While spending time in Florida, I attended many seminars and visited the Kennedy Space Center to learn as much as I possibly could about the history of the United States space exploration efforts. The events that stuck out to me most were the ones that took place on January 31st, my birthday. These important historical events that provided the United States with their firsts were Explorer 1, HAM, and Apollo 14, which helped promote the growth of the United States space program. On January 31st, 1958, Explorer 1 was launched into outer space, making it the United States' first successful satellite. According to NASA Science, scientifically the launch of the Explorer 1 satellite represented the first time the United States had sent any instruments up into space. This was important for the growth of the space program because it signified the ability to obtain data through the satellite and transmit it back to Earth, which had never been done before. On a more historical level of significance, the Explorer 1 also led the country into an infinite new frontier that has yielded data, images, and wonders that never before were imagined. The people behind NASA and the United States space program began to realize the infinite potential behind what could be possible with outer space exploration. Just 3 years after the United States successfully launched Explorer 1 into orbit, NASA moved on to exploration for living subjects in outer space. On January 31st, 1961, HAM, the first ape launched into outer space, traveling in the Mercury Redstone, was a part of the Project Mercury. According to Michael J. Newfield, the doctors required one such living subject before the first human suborbital and orbital flights were allowed to commence. He was obtained alive, well, and recovered after his flight. This was done to experiment as to whether humans could survive space travel. Doctors and scientists figured if the ape could survive in outer space, then a human would also be able to sustain the atmospheric changes as well. HAM's launch into outer space and safe return back to Earth paved the way for humans to become astronauts into space, creating growth for the United States space program as potential possibilities of space travel seemed even more idealistic. With the successful launch and return of HAM, NASA and the United States space program continued pursuing space exploration by sending even more humans into outer space. On January 31st, 1971, Apollo 14 set off to launch into outer space. Commander Alan Shepard, who was the first American in outer space in 1961 and the fifth American to take a step on the moon in 1971 with the Apollo 14. He piloted Apollo 14 and with the help of his crew was able to return to Earth safely. Apollo 14 was the first team to land in the lunar highlands, which was believed by scientists to be even older than other parts of the moon, enabling the crew of Apollo 14 to gather supplies of approximately 95 pounds of moon rock to test their theories. According to the Planetary Society, Apollo 13's near disaster had President Nixon wondering if the Apollo project should even be allowed to continue. The safe landing of Apollo 14 in the lunar highlands, where Apollo 13 was meant to land, as well as the safe return home of all the crew, gave a boost of confidence back to the nation about the continuation of space exploration efforts. Space travel is an important part of the growth of the United States, and it started with events like the launching of Explorer 1 with its successful orbit. HAM, the first chimpanzee to be launched into outer space, proving that it was possible for humans to survive, and Apollo 14 landing in a new area of the moon. These events were important firsts for the United States and were ones that would have never been possible without President Kennedy's sharp thinking of landing a man on the moon.